Greetings. I am a representative of the anti-Sinite movement. These videos are not edited. They are AI assisted and read from script. Today's subject is part 2 of our personal relationship with God. The power of personal submission. There is power in personal submission. At the heart of our anti-Sinite teaching is the understanding that sin-free personal growth, living a sin-free life, is the result of our own choices. Submission to God's commandments is not something that happens passively. It requires an active and deliberate decision from within our thought process. As pointed out by Christ when faced with the most extreme forms of suffering, chose not to deny God. His unshakable will was the foundation of his obedience, a model for how each of us is to approach and solidify our relationship with God, even unto death. This means that true righteousness can never be forced. True righteousness can never be forced. No one can impose sin-free living on another, nor can one's sin-free personal purity be passed on to family members, husbands or wives, children, shared or borrowed. Our submission, obedience, and practice is personally developed in the quiet of our own mind, tested in moments of temptation. We are tested in moments of temptation. And our mindset of righteousness is refined through constant, deliberate practice. Every commandment we follow, every sinful impulse we resist, strengthens our relationship with our personal God, light, life, force, and power within the likeness and image of God. Each act of submission is a step closer to sin-free personal completeness and perfection. Living by God's commandments, the path to sin-free existence, living sin-free as an anti-Sinite involves more than simply avoiding sin. It is proactive in dedication to practicing God's commandments. This ongoing process requires vigilance and an understanding that sin is not just an action of behavior, but a deviation from divine principles and practices. To stay on this path, we are to continuously reflect on God's law, applying them in every thought, decision, action, and interaction. Obedience is not a momentary event. Obedience is not a simple momentary event, but a lifelong journey, demanding our positive focus, attention, and persistence at all times. The 26 commandments, which we will make available to receive as you will be able to download them, we mentioned before, provide a structure for this life of righteousness, guiding anti-Sinites on how to interact with the world while remaining personally sin-free in motion towards complete purification. These commandments, when internalized and practiced, root out the inclination towards sin. And God's law function as the tools for maintaining a clean and righteous, positive life. Just as one must wash regularly to stay physically clean, an anti-Sinite must continually practice these commandments to remain sin-free, mentally cleansed of sin. Our our affecting and reflecting, the positive mental, physical, and behavioral aspects of sin-free living. The role of free will. This emphasis on personal responsibility as highlights the importance of free will in the relationship between humanity and God. Free will is a gift from God, but it also places the burden of responsibility squarely on our shoulders as individuals. Our obedience in this context is not just a sign of belief, but a true active expression of our free will, aligned with divine truth. It is this personal choice in which our conscious decision to live sin-free according to God's commandments that forges our way to righteous living. This is the only means by which we actually and factually are binding ourselves to our personal connection with God, found within us all. While external forces such as temptation, societal pressures, or even adversity may challenge our resolve at times, these weaknesses cannot and do not ultimately dictate our behavior or actions. Just as Christ was unyielding in his obedience, anti-Semites are called to use our free will to continually choose righteousness. The will to obey, even in the face of difficulty, deepens and solidifies our own personal relationship with God and reinforces the power of our individual steadfast submission, as well as fortifying our obedience in efforts of growing God's essence and attributes within ourselves. The futility of external forces. The futility of external forces. Just as no external force can make us live sin-free, no external force can impose sin upon us without our consent. The struggle against sin, then, is not a battle against outside forces, but an internal one. An internal one. The role of an anti-Semite is to guard one's mind and body from the subtle enticements of sin, recognizing that sin enters only when we open the door to it. This deepens the understanding that living in righteousness is a proactive, continuous process, one that relies entirely on our individual effort by the mercy and grace of God shown through us. The anti-Semite way is a blueprint for individual sin-free personal mastery. The anti-Semite sin-free living is a blueprint for individual sin-free personal mastery. The anti-Semite path is a conscious, disciplined pursuit of positive, sinless personal purity through adherence to God's commandments. Each anti-Semite is a vessel of God's will and presence on earth, responsible for embodying and manifesting God's law through our behavior into this world for generations to come. This way, we maintain a sin-free existence, not just as a personal goal, but as a testimony to God's glory. The relationship with God grows ever stronger as we prove through our daily practice that we are committed to righteousness, unwavering despite external circumstances surrounding us all. In this context, each person's relationship with God becomes a reflection of our commitment to living sin-free. It is a deeply intimate bond, shaped by personal choices and sustained by an unwavering dedication to following God's law. No one can take this relationship away, and no one can build it for another. Each individual must take full responsibility for our own sin-free state, fully trusting that by living righteously and practicing God's commandments, we are walking the right path towards divine sin-free fulfillment. In summary, our relationship with God is the most personal of endeavors, shaped by our own choices and practices. Just as no one could sway Christ's dedication to God, no one can dictate our level of obedience. Living sin-free is a voluntary, ongoing pleasure of submission to God's commandments, an individual, positive, personal, sinless pursuit that requires constant effort and devotion. This is the essence of anti-Sinite practice. This is the essence of the anti-Sinite practice, an internal transformation that manifests through righteous living, solidifying a pure, personal, unbreakable bond with God's likeness and image. Peace.